Hello again, sir. Welcome to my presentation. Today we'll be talking about the most unethical companies in the world. All information has been taken as of the 10th of June 2021. So let's begin to get into our criteria. So starting off, we have three different criteria. First one being human right violation, which is basically ethical forms of human disrespect, such as overworking employees or not giving any days off, stuff like that. Second one being financial irregularities. This includes fraud, tax evasion, etc. And then finally, unethical product or service, which is harmful in any way to the environment, for example. Oil is a good example of this, and just a heads up, we're not going to see any oil on this list. So let's move on to the first company, my apologies. So first we have Forever 21, human right violation. Now, Forever 21 is known for unethical factory practices in Los Angeles. Workers are paid based on the number of garments they produce rather than earning an hourly wage. Although this may be fine, the amount received per item is so little that even experienced sewers are unable to make more than $5 an hour or so. Now, the brand is also known to employ children in Uzbekistan who are taken out of school and basically forced to work on cotton farms. Now, I would rank this company to be 20th most unethical in the world, and yes, it's not in the top 5 list, but I did want to include it as one of the few companies doing unethical acts that are actually failing, as most still succeed. In September of 2019, Forever 21 filed for Chapter 11, bankruptcy, made a deal to sell $81 million in assets a few months later. It closed over 15,000 stores globally, and in 2020 it managed to remain in business. 2021, after the economic crisis, it is still continuing to fall, but it is not officially completely closed yet. I would honestly suggest it improve all factors so it can attract different types of customers, because right now they have nothing, so they need to improve in all ethical sectors. Moving on, we now have Coca-Cola, unethical product. Now, excluding the fact that Coca-Cola is very unhealthy, Coca-Cola is damaging in other ways. The company is the second worst plastic polluting company according to Greenspace, and in 2020 alone, Statistica.com shows that the company created about 5.24 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Now, although this is bad, there's much worse because there's a lot of unrecorded waste as well. People still tend to litter, and according to NationalGeographic.com, USA is the country that litters the most, which is one of the most consuming countries for Coca-Cola. Mexico, Canada, and Japan are also in the top 10 most littering countries in the world and are also in the top 10 most consuming countries for Coca-Cola. Now you can see the relationship. Majority of this waste from such countries, it doesn't become noticed, but this becomes an endless cycle of consume and waste. Now, this chart, you can clearly see that in 2020 there was less than average waste. However, we all know that was due to the economic crisis, and the statistics for 2021 has not been released yet. Now, focusing on the human rights sector, there's also issues, but I would not really show them as much because they're not as big as the unethical product type of issues. Now, they also have child laborers in third world countries such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Kazakhstan. Overall, I would rank this 4th most unethical company, just beating Pepsi, which is 5th, only because they do the same things but Coca-Cola at a larger scale. Now, moving on, we have Rio Tinto, human right violation and unethical services. Now, the Australian Metals and Mining Corporation is deemed to have the worst human rights records out of any operating business today. They earned these titles by torturing and killing opponents to their mines in countries such as Indonesia, and by supporting apartheid government in South Africa in exchange for rights to operate there by employing slave labor at their uranium mines in Africa, where they are exposing their workers at another mine in Canada to uranium levels over 7 times the legal limit. Now, this makes the CEO at the time, Jean-Sébastien Jacques, a scofflaw, meaning he doesn't follow any rules or any regulations, and because of the power bribes, he faces no consequences. Now, he was replaced in January of this year by Jacob Sotholm. He became the new CEO of the company. But the thing is, this serious dilemma has resulted in a vast range of low and high level sicknesses for their employees. Now, this has obviously caused controversy, but unlike other companies who apologize, even if it's a fake apology, the former CEO and other company leaders decided to have their own private mercenary army to literally fight off any business inconveniences. This would be rated, by my perspective, the third most unethical company in the world. Now, moving on, we have Enron, financial irregularities. Now, before I begin about speaking about this, Mike Companyman stated that a whole course could be made about this topic. I researched about it for multiple hours last semester, and it's truly fascinating. Now, in the late 1990s, the American Energy, Commodities, and Services Company, Enron, was basically like how Apple or Google is today. It was very mainstream, and it was very attracting to investors. However, revenue, profit, debt ratio, etc., they were all false numbers. Everything was false. Now, investors loved this. The revenue, however, was all fake, and this impacted stock prices and other financial sectors. Now, there were multiple accounting scams that reported this false information and made them so unattractive. Accountants and auditors were bribed by Enron, so basically they bribed to not do their job properly. The main accounting firm for this was Arthur Andersen, one of the 5 main firms at the time, and now they are no longer trustworthy, meaning they are no longer in business. Those in the higher positions were the only ones who were actually profitable, as although they did eventually get sentenced to jail time, everyone made millions illegally, even after jail time. In 2006, Enron CEO Jeff Skilling resigned, selling his stock just before he left, and within a month, the stock went from $80 and tanked to near nothing, which eventually became nothing. And he was one of the inside men, obviously. He took his profits before the truth got exposed. The company then filed for bankruptcy. 20,000 people lost their jobs and medical insurance at Enron. This is all alone, excluding Arthur Andersen employees, also tens of thousands, and billions lost from investors. Now, according to Investopedia.com, in the last 4 years of investors, of that last 4 years, more than 74 billion US dollar, and after calculations, this was all lost. Employees from Enron alone lost about $2 billion in pension funding. Now, in the last few months before resignation, Skilling used his George Bush connection to buy Californian electrical towers for a few hours, and he literally shut down everything to squeeze a larger profit in his final days to continue the stock rise. And obviously, this was all being a loss at the end of the day for any investor. Now, here's a little graph that shows everything that did happen. In the periods between 3 and 4 was when the marketing, the manipulation began to take place. It rose steadily, and then it really did rise around middle to end of 1999. You see here 8, which says EMPPE, the ratio of 63. Basically, PE ratio, the higher it is, the more volatile a stock will be. So it'll either go up a lot or go down a lot. And because this was all a scam and the truth began to start getting leaked at this time, boom, the stock completely dipped, and within months, everything was wiped out completely. So yeah, I strongly believe that this is the greatest scandal of all time. And this is all less than 1% of the bigger picture. There's a movie called Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room, which explains the bigger picture, and I highly recommend it. For this assignment's purpose, I would rate it as the second most unethical company in the world. Now, before moving on to the first most unethical company, I would like to speak about an unethical sector, the shipbreakers, human rights violations. Now, this situation is kind of similar to the ceramic tile issue in China from the 3.7 Do the Right Thing lesson. The whole idea is that workers deconstruct ships, breaking them piece by piece, and then make them into more liquid metal. And not literally liquid, but as in they can be profited easier. Obviously, all unethically. Now, this is basically what happens. Now, this area is where owners would have low business employee expenses, as workers are from third world countries, and they do major jobs very dangerously. Now, in the USA or in Canada, employees would be given financial backing in case of an emergency, medical benefits, proper safety equipment, etc. Here, the work is done by hand, and the workers must complete the task at hand with a short given timeline. Now, countries like Bangladesh, workers are given a ship, like a boat or something, are asked to completely break it, hence the name, and that's all it is. Lots of work with fire and burning metals obviously results in the workplace being unhealthy. It's filled with asbestos and uncontrollable mercury and toxic fumes, and all this profit is definitely not allowed, because it's a lot of unethical profit. As investors, they could easily make a good 5 million profit per ship, and they break about 150 to 200 ships a year. While they're making the millions, the employees are literally earning dollars a year. Now, if you would like to learn any more about this, I have an assignment on this topic where I had to think of the situation from an unethical business owner's perspective. I have a link to the description and in the comments. And obviously, for this assignment, it would not be an actual rating. Now, moving on to the most unethical company, Nestle, human rights violations and unethical products. They've done it all. Nestle encourages child labor, as it's cheaper, and has contaminating work conditions, and is probably the worst company in terms of employee satisfaction. A prime example of this would be Nestle's campaign in the 1970s for mothers to use their baby formula instead of breast milk. This resulted in widespread infant malnutrition and death in several third world countries. And then there's the new focus on water. Nestle, the most largest bottled water distributor in the world, with such an invested interest in water, they saw that a water shortage could be possible in the near future. So they decided to literally steal water sources in third world countries around the globe and then package it and sell it for inflated prices. So they basically said, a formula is better than breast milk, buy our product, that's a profit right there. Then they stole the third world countries' water and sold it back to them for higher profits. So more unethical money for Nestle and hundreds of thousands of human deaths. The company also sources water in the USA without permits, such as San Bernardino National Forest since 1988. The chairman has gone as far as saying access to public water is not a right. And he claimed it was a misunderstanding in an apology video, basically saying, he meant that we should value water more, yada, yada, yada. And that's just a true blessing. But with such illegal and unethical practices, no one even considered his words. The company also makes their products, water, formula, clothes, everything, in environmentally damaging ways as well. Along with Coca-Cola and Pepsi, it's one of the top 3 most polluting companies ever. In fact, it's the first. In December 11th of 2020, FirstPost.com released an article about most polluting companies, stating PepsiCo contributed to 5,135 pieces of plastic across 43 countries, and 8,633 pieces of Nestle plastics items were found in 37 countries. They don't have any hearts. All they want is unethical profits, realistically. And this is by far the most unethical company in the world.